Russia continuing to mass troops on the border now with Ukraine. The question remains about actions that the Biden administration can take, sanctions. And I spoke specifically about that with Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo and asked him what measures the White House can take to restrict Russia's access to dollars.
Late last year, when we started to see Russian troops amassing near the Ukrainian border, the president asked Secretary Yellen and the Treasury Department to start considering options that would mete out an economic consequence for Russia if one Russian troop were to touch foot into Ukraine. And that's exactly what we've been doing since then across the department. But not just here at Treasury. The Secretary and myself have had dozens of calls with our European counterparts to make sure that the actions we're taking here in the United States would be met by significant actions taken in Europe as well. And those conversations continue on. And what I can tell you today is that I was here in 2014 when the United States first took actions when Russia invaded Crimea, and the options we're considering today are far more significant than the options we had taken then, and they would only be taken if the Kremlin made the decision to invade Ukraine. But our preference, of course, is for diplomacy, but the choice belongs to the Kremlin.
Can you speak to some of the measures that you're considering, though? Would you, for instance, support cutting Russia out of the SWIFT financial system, kicking them out of SWIFT?
So, Joe, what I can say is that all options are on the table. What we've done is that we've worked closely with our allies in Europe to make sure that we have a carefully designed set of sanctions that would have a significant impact on the Russian economy.
Do you need to have the buy-in of our European allies, if I could just interrupt, before you approve any sanctions in the U.S.?
So, Joe, the president has made very clear that our goal is to make sure that we work in unison with the Europeans. And what I can tell you is that in our conversations, we've been aligned in terms of the sanctions that we want and the actions that we want to take. We have a shared goal in terms of respecting the sovereignty of Ukraine and in terms of standing up and ensuring that we have sanctions at the ready in case a Russian troop enters Ukraine.
You led a review of Treasury sanctions policies, so I know you have a better sense of this than, frankly, most people in the department. What would be different this time, to your earlier point? How would you make this hurt, as we have not seen in the past with sanctions?
So, Joe, one of the things that we have done following the sanctions review is ensure that early on in the conversations, we have started to talk with our allies, because one thing that we recognize is that when the U.S. takes actions, it has an economic impact on any country, but taking actions in collaboration and coordination with our allies has an even more increasing of an impact on those countries. And that's why we've worked so closely with our European allies, and now we're also working with our allies and partners in Asia to make sure that if Russia takes an action that violates Ukraine's sovereignty, we'd be in a position to have economic costs that would be brought to bear.